Boeing's Starliner capsule has been in the news for a while, and not for a particularly good reason. On June 5th of this year, 2024 for those of y'all in the future, Starliner launched on the crewed flight test mission, the final test flight planned before Starliner would enter service carrying crew to and from the International Space Station. Although the launch itself was smooth and apparently free of problems, once Starliner began maneuvering towards the ISS, problems became very apparent. 5 of the 28 thrusters on Starliner's service module experienced a loss of thrust, which resulted in the flight computer turning them off. After further testing, 4 of the thrusters were found to be operating nominally again, and they were restarted. During this time, 3 helium leaks in the propulsion system were also detected. While those leaks subsided after the spacecraft managed to dock to the ISS, concerns surrounding the thrusters remained. If too many thrusters went offline during unlocking or re-entry, Starliner could lose its ability to steer or change its course. As such, return to Earth was delayed while teams on the ground tested thrusters. They were eventually able to find that a Teflon seal in one of the thruster valves started bulging due to heat from thruster firings, and that bulge was then restricting fuel flow through the pipe, greatly diminishing the thrust output. Since that point, engineers have been trying to evaluate what situations can trigger this problem, because it wasn't seen in any of the previous uncrewed flight tests of Starliner. So far, they haven't come to an absolute conclusion of what's going on with this. So NASA is making the decision to send the crew of the Starliner flight test home on the next SpaceX Dragon launch to the space station. The Dragon capsule only has seating for 4 people, so the mission is going to launch with 2 crew, and the Starliner astronauts, Barry Butch Wilmore and Sunita Sunny Williams, will stay on station for the whole planned length of the Dragon stay, which will extend their time on station to about 9 months. In the meanwhile, Starliner will autonomously return home to free up a spot for the Dragon capsule to dock at the station. If an emergency comes up during the time that Starliner is gone and the Dragon has not arrived, the Starliner crew can return in the currently docked Crew Dragon along with its 4 crew. However, they would not have a spacesuit or even a seat. So let me just stress here that it's extremely unlikely that they would ever have to do this, as the only reason that they would evacuate the station would be if something catastrophic damaged the ISS like debris. Now, the big question here is, how on earth did this thruster problem not get caught before flying a mission with crew? Boeing had 2 uncrewed flight tests to get this right, so how did they miss it? Very likely the answer here is that they were dealing with even bigger issues on both previous tests. So, Starliner's first test flight was back in 2019. In that mission, after reaching orbit, Starliner's onboard clock was discovered to be out of sync with real time, which caused it to try and perform its maneuvers at the wrong time and burn too much fuel for it to meet up with the space station. As such, the mission was cut short and a hasty return was scheduled, which didn't leave much time for the thrusters to act up. So then, shortly before re-entry, they discovered a software bug that could have caused the service module to collide with the capsule after it separated, which could pretty easily damage the spacecraft's heat shield. This was fixed before it would become an issue, but this also resulted in Boeing saying that they had never conducted a full end-to-end test of their flight software, which just isn't great. So now let's move ahead to 2022, when Starliner was preparing to fly again. Now, this flight would pretty soon be delayed, because while the spacecraft was sitting on the launch pad in Florida, water vapor got into the valves of the thruster system, on that service module and reacted with the toxic fuels used in the control system. The resulting gases from this reaction started corroding valves and required replacement of the whole service module. After some protective seals were placed over the thrusters of this new service module, which I should note was an innovation of the space shuttle, which used a very similar propulsion system. Don't know why Boeing's engineers didn't think to do that, but anyways, Starliner would then go on to fly yet again. This time, the software worked pretty well and the craft made it to the space station. But 2 thrusters failed for an undisclosed reason. After that, the flight was largely nominal, and the spacecraft was deemed ready to carry a manned test flight. This brings us back to where we started with the crewed flight test, and at this point I'd just like to make a few final clarifications. First off, Starliner is developed by Boeing's Space Division, which is run by a separate administrative team from the Aviation Division. So the quality control issues that were found in Boeing aircraft production should be unrelated to Starliner. Next up, I'd like to talk about the safety of the crew. It's very important that we make clear that the crew of Starliner are experienced test pilots used to dealing with dangerous missions. At no time were so many of the thrusters offline that they would have been unable to control the spacecraft, and once they docked to the space station, there were supplies on board to keep them there indefinitely. In an emergency, they could have returned on Dragon, and if it came down to it, Starliner would still probably take Butch and Sunny back safely. However, NASA has fortunately learned their lesson from the lax safety culture of the space shuttle program and is taking the safest option here. So, with that, that's all I've got for you today. And if you feel like this video is worth your time, please consider liking, subscribing, and doing all those YouTube things. Thanks for watching.